are up to the Mishnah on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. So before we start, I just wanted to do a recap because we learned already 12 blot of the Masechta, and there were so many facts that were thrown at us. I just want to do a quick recap. The Masechta started with a halacha that most karbonis, if you do the avodah shaloi l'shma, and when we say avodah, we mean the four avodah, shchita, kabbalah, halacha, and zrika. If you do them shaloi l'shma, either shaloi l'shem, the right carbon, or shaloi l'shem, the right bilim, the carbon will be kosher. You can continue being makavit, yet le'olu bilim l'shem chayva, the bilim will have to bring a new carbon to fulfill their obligation. The Mishnah said that there are two exceptions to this rule, and that those exceptions are Pesach and Chatas. Pesach, on Erev Pesach, Bisman, when a carbon Pesach is a carbon Pesach. If it's brought l'shem any other carbon, it will be possible. But a carbon Pesach brought during a period of time that's not designed for the carbon Pesach automatically morphs into a shlamim and then has a halacha of a shlamim that even if it's brought shaloi l'shma, it's going to be kosher. But a Pesach and a Chatas, if it's brought shaloi l'shma, it's going to be possible. Then we had the Shita of Shimon Achai Azariah, who said that if you bring, I'm sorry, we had the Shita of Yosef ben Chuni, I think. We had the Shita of Yosef ben Chuni who said that if you bring any other carbon, l'shem the chatos, or l'shem the, I lost my camera, or l'shem the Pesach, it's also going to be possible. That was Yosy ben Chuni. And then we had Shimon Achai Azariah, who said that if you shechted a carbon for an upgrade, so you shechted a kachim column for a kachim, it will be kosher. So for the first couple of blatter, the Gemara spent a lot of time. Oh, I skipped one more shita on Reb Eliezer. Reb Eliezer holds an osham is just like a chatos, and it will also be possible shaloi l'shma. So the first couple of blatter, the Gemara spent finding a makar that lechatchila you have to do the four avodas l'shma, and if you didn't do it, b'di'evet it'll be kosher. So the Gemara brought a special raya for shchita and for kabbalah and for halacha and for shrika, and then the Gemara had to bring another four rayas to prove that even if it was shaloi l'shem bailim, it has the same halacha. In the process of all these rayas, we learned another important rule, that shaloi l'shem bailim is only a problem by the zrika. We're learning the psul applies to all four avodas. So the explanation of that is by the shchita, shechting the animal for the wrong bailim is not a problem. But if when you shechted the animal, you had in mind to do the zrika for the wrong bailim, that's going to be the problem of shaloi l'shem bailim. So that was the first batch. Then we know that the Pesach and the Osham, they're shaloi l'shma apostles, and the Gemara taught us because by each of those two psukim, by the shchita, the Torah mentions the word hu, chatasu Pesach hu, it has to be specifically brought l'shem the Pesach or l'shem the chatas. The Gemara says by an Osham, and it also says hu. Dr. Gemara, the hu by Osham is by the Haktorah, and therefore it doesn't prove anything. Because the Haktorah for sure doesn't have to be Lishma, because even if you didn't do Haktorah at all, a carbon is going to be kosher. Yet Reb Eliezer held an Osham is just like a Chatos, and the Osham also, if it's not brought Lishma, it will be possible. Now, then we have the Shita of Yosy ben Chuni, who said, Shechting l'shem Pesach, l'shem Chatos, is psulin. The Gemara said that we have a Shita of Reb Eliezer, where Reb Eliezer and Reb Shua have a machloikis. If you shechted another carbon l'shem Pesach, if it will be possible or not, where Reb Eliezer said it will be possible, we have a machloikis between Rabbah and Rabbi Yochanan, what Reb Eliezer would hold about shechting another carbon l'shem chatos. Rabbi Yochanan said that he's exactly parallel to Yosy ben Chuni, and any carbon that was shechted l'shem chatos, just like a carbon that was shechted l'shem Pesach, will be possible. And Rabbah said, no, Pesach, yes, any carbon shechted l'shem Pesach will be possible, but a carbon shechted l'shem chatos will be kosher. Then we had on Erev Shabbos, the Gemara explained the shita of Shimon Achei Azariah. If you shecht it as an upgrade to a level up, it's going to be kosher. To a level down, it's not kosher. Now we know for sure when he says if you shechted it for a level down, it will be possible. That clearly argues on our Mishnah, on the Tanakama of our Mishnah, who holds it's kosher. But when Shimon Achei Azariah said that if you shecht a kodesh kolam for a kodesh kolam for a kodesh there's an upgrade, it's kosher. What does he mean that it's kosher? Does he mean just the Chachamim said that it's kosher, but it's like or does he even mean that it's a kosher occur? And that's all the different sugyas that the Gemara discussed related to the first Mishnah. So we've really got a full background in the rules of shechting a carbon shaloi lishma. Today we're going to learn a Mishnah that's going to talk about a couple of more things. Oh, I missed out another very important thing: the carbon oila. We brought a shita from Ben Beseira who holds that even a carbon oila is going to be like a chatos, and if it was shechted shaloi lishma, it will be possible. And he knew it because he heard it from 72 zakenim. Halacha l'Moshe Mishinai ish min piyish to halacha l'Moshe Mishinai, the more gemir law, but we don't pass like that. So those are all many halachas we learned about shaloi lishma. Today we're going to learn another twist about shaloi lishma, and we're going to be introduced to a new type of machshava that could pass on a carbon, and that is pigul. So far we've been focused primarily on a machshava shaloi lishma. We had a little peppering discussion about pigul, but today we're going to get in greater detail into pigul and how pigul works. So let's start with the Mishnah. HaPesach ve'achatos sheshachton shaloi lishma. A Pesach or a Chadas that you shech shaloi lishma, or kibel v'holach v'zorach shaloi lishman. Any one of the four avodas that were done shaloi lishma, the Mishnah is going to say it makes it possible. But we have more variances. What about oil lishman v'shaloi lishman? Do you have kavanah on half of the shchita lishma and half of the shchita shaloi lishma? Or shaloi lishman ulishman, or the first half was shaloi lishma, the second half was lishma. Psulim, that will still passel because part of it was shaloi lishma. Keitzad lishman v'shaloi lishman. What's an example of lishlan v'shaloi lishman? He shechted a carbon pesach l'shem pesach u'l'shem shlomim. So that second half of his kavanah will passel. Or shaloi lishman v'lishman, meaning he said he shechted a carbon pesach halfway l'shem shlomim, and then in the middle of the shechita he said l'shem pesach. So these are all going to be puzzled because of the psul of shaloi lishma. Shazevach nifsal, every carbon becomes puzzle if it's shaloi lishma, barbar, dvarim, for any one of the four major avodas, which are shechita, kibul, hiluch, and zrika. So that's sort of a clarification and a reiteration of what we've been learning up till now. It's Reb Shimon that introduces another thought. Reb Shimon machshir behiluch. Reb Shimon knows halacha is not one of the critical avodas where shaloi lishma would pass. Why is halacha not a critical avodah? Reb Shimon oimer efsher shaloi b'shchita v'shaloi b'kabbalah v'shaloi b'zrika. It's impossible to process a carbon properly without shchita, without kabbalah, without zrika. Avol efsher b'lahiluch. It's possible to process a carbon perfectly without any halacha at all. What's the example of this? Shaychit b'tzad mizbeach v'zor. What if the shechita was right beside the mizbeach? So he does Kabbalah and he makes the zrika right there. He has no need to do any type of halacha at all. So since halacha is an optional avodah, it's definitely not an avodah that a machshava psula will pass. Rab Elazar, the Bach changed it from Rab Eliezer to Rab Elazar, Rab Shimon, Omer, he says, it depends. It all depends in that specific scenario if halacha was required. If it's a mahalach b'mokum shu tzorech lahalech, if he happened to have shechted not near the mizbeach, so the halacha was required to bring the dam to the mizbeach to complete the zrika, then machshava peiselas. That halacha was necessary. It's an integral avodah, and therefore a machshava psula will pass. But the mokum she'enei tzorech lahalech. But what if he didn't need halacha here? And Rashi says the Gemara is going to give an example of a case where that would be relevant. Then ein machshava paiselas. There the halacha was not critical to the process of the carbon, and therefore the halacha with a bad machshava would not cause a problem.
Why doesn't the Gemara say that since no halacha was needed, then it can't be possible? It's not. It's not feasible.
Well, even if halacha wasn't needed, what if halacha wasn't needed, but he made halacha anyway?
So how can he make halacha?
Very
how
simple.
Can he make halacha? It's physically impossible
So
if he's standing next to the mizbeach anyway.
So Rashi says the Gemara is going to explain, but I will use my imagination. He shechted right there to the mizbeach. He was makabod in the keli, and then he went for a walk with it and came back to the mizbeach. So he didn't need halacha, but he did it anyway. Again, I don't know if that's what the Gemara is going to say, but Rashi says the Gemara is going to tell us where is the case where halacha wasn't required, but he did it anyway. So I don't know the answer to your question. It's a very good question. Rashi bavarns it, and Rashi says, let's see when the Gemara explains it. I didn't prepare that far ahead, so I don't know that Gemara yet. So in fact, the Gemara, the Kabbalah mi pasla b'machshava, the shita mekavat sticks in. So the Mishnah says quite clearly that any one of the four avodas, shchita, Kabbalah, Hailach, and Zrika, a machshava will pass. So the Gemara is challenging. Kabbalah is a critical avodah that a machshava psula would pass. I'm going to show you a brisa that disagrees with that. But Tanya, we have a brisa. Now let's look at the full pasuk inside. It's talking about an oila, and the pasuk says, "V'shachat es ben habokar lifnei Hashem, v'krivu b'nei ar nakoinim es adam." V'zorku es adam ala mizbeach soviv asher pesach oil moed. So the Brisa darshans this pasuk. V'krivu zu kabbalas atam. When the pasuk is v'krivu, when the nentert, the carbon, it's referring to being makriv the dam. It's referring to being mekabel the dam. Now v'hikriv doesn't really sound like Kabbalah. V'hikriv sounds more like bringing the dam to the mizbeach. Maybe like Hoilacha, or maybe even like Zrika itself, because the akrova by an oila is the Zrika. Zakt Gemara, Ata Omer Kabbalah Sadam. You're saying Vikrivu is referring to the Kabbalah Sadam? Oy Einoi Ela Zrika. Maybe the Vikrivu is referring to the Zrika. Zakt Brisa, Vikrivu coming to Zrika. Because the pasuk later says, Vizarku es Adam ala Mizbeach. So Kishu Omer Vizarku, the pasuk already says Vizarku. Harei Zrika Omer. So the Krivu can't refer to the Zrika. Hamani Mekayim V'Krivu Zu Kabbalah Sadam. We're going to say that this pasuk, when it says V'Krivu B'nei Aaron, it's referring to Kabbalah Sadam. And we already had in the earlier in the parak that the Balt, it describes the act of Kabbalah using a lashon of V'Krivu, which sounds very much like Halacha. Therefore, Halacha and Kabbalah share the same halacha. Whatever we learn by Kabbalah will apply to Halacha, all because the Torah used the word V'Krivu to describe Kabbalah Sadam. Now, what about this Kabbalah Sadam? B'nei Aaron HaKayhan. In order to do the Kabbalah Sadam in a kosher oifen, who must perform it? Should they be kohen kosher? It has to be done by a kohen kosher, not by a chalal, not by a mamzer, not from any psul. And with Klisharis, it has to be done with the big day kahuna. Klisharis, Rashi says, refers to the big day kahuna. Amar Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva tells us, just looking at the pasuk b'nei Aaron HaKohanim, we can't build from there that chiddush that it needs kohen kosher and Klisharis. We need more of a source to indicate that b'nei Aaron HaKohanim is referring to a kosher kohen in the big day kahuna. So therefore, Rabbi Kiva finds a source. Minayin the Kabbalah. Shaloi tehei ela b'koyin kosher uv'chlisharis. Nemer kan b'nei Aaron. It says over here by the parsha of the Oila, the Kruva b'nei Aaron. But nemer lahalon, and it says when they were pointing the Levium, it says elo shemois b'nei Aaron hakoyhanim hameshuchim. Ma lahalon the koyin kosher. Just like in that pasuk by Midbar, it's talking about a koyin kosher because the pasuk is talking about a Lazar and Isamar, the b'nei Aaron hakoyin, and the v'chlisharis. The Torah also says there that they were wearing big day shares, because Rashi says, the Torah says over there, umileis yodoi lil boish es habegodim. So Afkan, so too over here in the parsha of Oilam, the parsha of Zrika, what type of coin are we talking about? To do this rika, it's b'koyin kosher ub'chlei sharis, afkan b'koyin kosher ub'chlei sharis. So that is the first part of the brisa. No problem yet. No problem yet. Remember, what we're trying to do is we're trying to challenge our Mishnah that says that a machshava of shaloi l'shema by the Kabbalah will pose a problem. And here's where the problem starts. Amar Reb Tarfon. Reb Tarfon says, "Akapeach hasbanai, I should bury my kids." In other words, he's making a promise. I remember for sure, im lo shamati lahafchen hefresh ben Kabbalah l'zrika. I have a clear recollection, and if I'm wrong, my child should die. Why Reb Tarfon used such a severe, sharp type of promise, I don't know. But I know for sure, Reb Tarfon, that my Rebbe taught me that there's a distinction, a difference in halacha between Kabbalah and Zrika. But for the life of me, the Ainli Lefarish, I can't remember what the distinction was. Omar Rabbi Akiva, so Rabbi Akiva says, Reb Tarfon, I can help you. Ani Afarish, I will show you a series of differences between Kabbalah and Zrika. And here we go. Number one difference. Kabbalah loy asaba machshava kamaisa. By Kabbalah, a machshava will not pass. By the Zrika, asaba machshava kamaisa. Zog Rashi, what do we mean by machshava kamaisa? What are all the types of machshavas psulos that passel karbanos? Our whole Masechta so far is discussing a machshava of shaloi l'shema. So the machshava of shaloi l'shema passels by Zrika, but does not passel by Kabbalah. There's another machshava psula that we didn't learn about that we're going to be introduced to now, and that is the machshava of Pigul. The machshava of Pigul is also a machshava. So Rabbi Akiva al Pi Pashas is saying that any psul that comes because of a machshava, such as either shaloi l'shema or Pigul, is not applicable to the avoid of Kabbalah. So that's a huge kasha on our Mishnah, because our Mishnah said quite clearly that one of the major avoidus is Kabbalah, and the machshava of shaloi l'shema will passel. Yet Rabbi Akiva said quite clearly, and we'll see soon that Reb Tarfon vociferously agreed with Rabbi Akiva that Kabbalah machshava doesn't pass. So that is our problem. Now Rabbi Akiva goes on and said it's not just that the machshava doesn't passel Kabbalah. There's many other differences between Kabbalah and Zrika. And he goes on to list them. Now, these aren't relevant to our sugya, but they're part of what Rabbi Akiva was saying. Kiblu b'chutz einei chayav kares. The halacha is chutei chutz. If you shecht an animal b'chutz, you're going to be chayav kares. Now, if you made a Kabbalah sadam b'chutz, einei chayav kares. There won't be a chayav kares. But zarka b'chutz. But if someone made zrika sadam of a carbon out of the Beis Hamikdash, onush kares, he'll be chayav kares. So that's another huge distinction between the avoid of Kabbalah and the avoid of Zrika. Another huge distinction is Kablu Psulin. What if a Yisrael does Kabbalah Saddam? We know only a Kohen is allowed to do Kabbalah Saddam. What if a Zor did Kabbalah Saddam? Ein Chayovin Allah. He will not be Chayiv Misa for it. But Zarku Psulin, if a Zor did Zrika Saddam, Chayovin Allah, he's Chayiv Misa. So there were three distinctions Rabbi Akiva made between Zrika and Kabbalah. Reb Tarfon got so excited. Amar lo Reb Tarfon ha'avoid, I swear, imitiza yamin ismol, you didn't deviate a hair from what my Rebbe taught me. You knew it. Unbelievable. Ani shamati ve'ein li lefarish. I remembered my Rebbe taught something, and I couldn't for the life of me remember the specifics. Ata doirish, you on your own without any prompting. We're doirish it on your own. Umaskim l'shmua. And you were bang on. You hit the nail on the head. Exactly what my Rebbe said that are the differences between Zrika and Kabbalah. Beloshen hazeh omerle. So Reb Tarfon said these exact words to Rabbi Akiva. Akiva, kol haparish mimcha keparish mechaya. If anybody separates himself from you, it's like he's given up his life. You are the source of life. You, mamish, have the Torah klor. You darshan on your own, independent of any Rebbe, exactly what my Rebbe taught. The main conclusion that we have to draw out of here is that Rabbi Akiva and Reb Tarfon both say that there's no psul machshava by the avoida of Kabbalah. Yet our Mishnah says beferish there is. It's not a stira, because as we noted, there's two types of machshavas that can passel: the machshava of Pigul and the machshava of shaloi l'shema. Our Mishnah, what is it talking about? It's talking about the machshava of shaloi lishma. So when our Mishnah says that a machshava psul will passel Kabbalah, that's only the machshava of shaloi lishma. But the machshava that Rebbe Kiva said doesn't passel by the avodah of Kabbalah, that's a machshava of Pigul. So Amar Rebbe Lekasha, kan b'machshava is Pigul. That's where machshava will not passel by the Kabbalah. Kan b'machshava shaloi lishma, our Mishnah is speaking by machshava shaloi lishma that will passel by the Kabbalah. Dekanami. And if you look at the words of our Mishnah, it's very muduyak. Because we know a shaloi l'shma carbon is possible. But if someone eats it, he's not chayiv kares. But if a carbon becomes pigul and it's eaten, the person who eats that pigul is chayiv kares. So we don't just use the generic term possible when we're talking about pigul, because it's a lot more than possible. You're chayiv kares if you eat it. That the Tana will always describe with the word mispagel. It becomes pigul. Our Mishnah does not say mispagel by the Kabbalah. What did our Mishnah say? Shazevach nifsal barbar dvarim b'shchita uvekibel. It only becomes possible. If it only becomes possible, clearly our Mishnah is only discussing a shaloi lishma. Because if it was talking about pigul, the Tana would have said shazevach nispagel barbar dvarim. So clearly our Mishnah is speaking about shaloi lishma and not pigul. Dekanami dekatani shazevach nifsal v'loi katani mispagel shmamina. So that's the answer. Where do we say this chiddush that the machshava does not passel by the avodah of Kabbalah? That's lagabi the chiyuv of pigul, but lagabi the chiyuv of shaloi lishma, the psul of shaloi lishma, avada Kabbalah is like any other avodah. So now the Gemara is going to shift gears and go into pigul. We just concluded that there is no machshava psul of pigul that would be relevant to the Zrika Saddam. I'm sorry, to the Kabbalah Saddam. Frank the Gemara, is that so? I'm going to quote your brisa that says quite clearly that there is a psul of pigul by Kabbalah. What Tanya we learned? I would have thought that the machshava of pigul would only pass by the Zrika. How do you know that the psul of pigul even applies to the shechita and the Kabbalah? Our question here, Talmud Loimar. So let's have a look at the pasuk inside before the Gemara darshans. Talmud Loimar v'mei achol yeyachel mi b'sar zevach shlomo. Now this pasuk is the pasuk of pigul, and where is the pasuk of pigul taught to us? By the carbon shlomim. And we're going to soon see that the only place in the Torah where the Torah teaches us about the psul of pigul is by the carbon shlomim. We're going to have to figure out how we know the halach of pigul by all other karbonos. But let's just see the pasuk. And the Gemara is going to darshan doesn't mean if you eat it b'yom hashlishi. It means if you had kavana during one of the avodas to eat the basar chutz l'zmanoi, eat the shlomim on day 3, which is out of bounds as far as when you're supposed to eat it. That's a machshava pigul. Lo yerotze. This carbon will not be maratze. Hamakriv oisoi lo yechashav loy. The person who's makriv this carbon, it will not be added to his credit account. Rather, pigul yiyah. It's pigul. And someone who eats this pigul will be chayiv misa chayiv post. Now let's see the Gemara, how the Gemara darshans this pasuk. What type of avoidus will a machshav of pigul have an impact and make the carbon into pigul? Any one of the avoidus that lead up to eating the carbon. That's like the shchita, that's like the Kabbalah, the halacha, and the zrika. Zog to Gemara, what about the halacha that after the zrikas adam you have to pour the leftover blood down the Yosy mizbeach? Is that also an avoida that if you had the machshava of pigul in, it would passel? Yochal shanimar ba'av shvicha shirayim v'aktar seimurin, or during the haktar seimurin, if you had kavana to do something chutz l'zmanoi, maybe that would also make pigul. Talmud loymar b'yoyim hashlishi lo yerotze hamakriv oisoi. Makriv we know is always referring to this Rika. Lo yechashev. It says a makar lo yechashev. Now the pasuk already said the me'acha yachel, which we already said it refers to all four avodas. Why would now at the end of the pasuk the Torah refers to dafke one avoda, a makar v'oshay? Why does the Torah itemize just the one avoda of Zrika at the end, when at the beginning of the pasuk told us quite clearly that Pigul applies to all the avodas? So Zokim Zrika b'chlal haisa. Zrika was included in the four avodas, included in the veheyachal yachal. V'lama yotisa. Why did the Torah specify the Zrika here? To tell us the only type of avodas where Pigul will cause a problem is if it's similar to the Zrika. Loimelach. Bazrika meyuchedesh. She avoida umakeres kapara. Just like the Zrika is an avoida that if you didn't do it, the carbon wouldn't be kosher. It would be ma'akiv the kapara. Afkol avoida, so too the only type of avoidas where a machshavas Pigul will passel is an avoida that umakeres kapara. And that's only the shchita, because without the shchita you don't have a kosher carbon. Without the Kabbalah you don't have a kosher carbon. Without the halacha you don't have a kosher carbon unless you hold like Reb Eliezer and Mishnah. Or Pshimid Mishnah, that is. And without the Zrika, you don't have a kosher carbon. But Yotzu Shvicha Shirayim Baktor Seimurin Chain Makvanes Kapara. If you weren't Shavich to Shirayim, if you were Makri Murim, the carbon will be kosher anyway. The carbon will be kosher anyway. The carbon will be kosher anyway. Machshavas Pigul during these avodos will not pass. So, Frag the Gemara, you just told me, according to Rabbi Kiva, that the machshava of Pigul by this Rika will not passel. It's quite clear from this brisa that all of the avodas, including the Kabbalah, would be an avodah where Pigul would passel. So we have a stira. We have Rabbi Kiva saying and Reb Tarfon saying that the avodah of Rika is not susceptible to Pigul. Yet we have a brisa here that says the avodah of Kabbalah is susceptible to Pigul. So what do? We turn over a page and then we get our answer. Ella zok the Heilige Gemara. Ella loy kasha. It's not a stira because there's two questions here. When it comes to Pigul, remember there's two things we have to keep in mind. In which avoida did the ovid have the wrong kavana? For that only applies to the four avodas. Shchita, Kabbalah, Eilach, and Zrika. That's where the kohen has to have the wrong kavanah. But what is that wrong kavanah? What does he have to have the wrong kavanah about? He has to have the wrong kavanah about anything that involves an achila. And let's see the details. If someone shechts, and he says, I'm shechting almanas to be makabel the dam tomorrow, which is the wrong time, that's not a problem at all. Because the problem of Pigul is only if you have kavana on some type of achila to be done out of the proper time. Now, there's four types of achilas. A is Rika Sadam. B, Haktoris or Emurim. C is Shavichas Hashirayim Liyasoid. And D, number four, is the person eating the carbon, the Kaihanim or the Bailam eating the carbon. Those four achilas. So when can you have a machshava that will passel during one of the four major avodas? What must the machshava be about? A davar shel achila, either achilos adam or achilos mzveach. So when the machshava will passel is during the four avodas. Shchita, Kabbalah, Halach, and Zrika. That's when he can have a machshava that could passel. But what does the machshava have to be about? It has to be about a davar shel achila, and that is either Zrika, Shvicha Shirayim, Haktar Seimurim on the Mizbech, or Achila of the basar or the carbon. So that's the Gemara Teretz. When Rabbi Kiva said that there's no machshav of Pigul by Kabbalah, that's referring to if during one of the other avodas he had kavana to do the Kabbalah out of the right time. The Kabbalah is not a davar shel achila. So thinking about doing the Kabbalah at the wrong time will not make it Pigul. That's where Rabbi Kiva said that the kavana of Pigul on the Zrika won't pass it. But the brayta that we just learned that says a kavana of the Zrika will pass, that's if you had kavana during the Zrika about an achila. Gewaltig. Gewaltig. Omar le'ahu me'Rabbanan l'Rava. So one of the Rabbanan told Rava, U'shvicha shirayim v'aktar seimurim loy pasla b'hu machshava. We just said on Amar Aleph that shvicha shirayim and aktar seimurim, a machshava of Pigul will not pass. Is that true? But Tanya, we learned that does pass. Yochel loy tei machshava moyelas. Ela b'achilas basar, I would have thought a machshava only on achilas basar out of the right time is a isur of Pigul. Those are also achilos. How do you know that if you had kavanah over there, that it should be chutz l'zmanoi? How do you know that's also Pigul? Any achila that's going to occur with the carbon, whether it's the mizbeach eating it like dam or imurim, or if it's the adam eating it like the shirayim of a carbon that's eaten by either the kehanim or the bailim, all those are items that can be subject to Pigul. That's where we say it is Pigul. Because when did you have the kavanah? During the Zrika. What was the kavanah about? The shvicha shirayim, which is a type of achila. But but if someone had the wrong kavada during the shvicha shirayim, that's not one of the four major avodas in which Pigul will pass. So to make everything crystal clear, Rashi lays it out for us in the simplest of terms on the fourth line from the top in Rashi. Klala de Milsa. There's a simple rule when it comes to Pigul. Ba'inon machshava b'shas avoda. You need a machshava to be b'shas avoda. Which avoda? The shchita, the kabbalah, the locher, the zrika. That's when the machshava has to happen. What must the machshava be about? Al davar achila sodom oilam mizbeach. Therefore, if the machshava that you had was during the shvichas hashirayim, which is not one of the major avoided series, al achilas basar loy klumhu the loy havoy machshava b'shas avoida. That machshava was not during one of the major avoida groups. It was during the auxiliary avoiders, which will not be susceptible to the psula Pigul. Okay, so I didn't realize that Daniel is saying shiur tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my oilam into a room because I didn't want to infringe on Daniel's shiur. So I'm going to move now all of us into a room. I'm going to open up a room and I'm going to ask everybody. I'm going to invite everybody here, and I'm going to ask you to join me there because I didn't realize, unfortunately, that Daniel was giving shiur. So I'm going to quickly create a room, and I'm going to bring everybody in.
Yeah, you good? You're fine. Yosy, good to go.
Look, I'm sorry. I created a room. I'm going to pull my oilam out of your room so that I won't disturb you.
You're not disturbing at all. The Olam enjoys your share very much, and I lost my.
I'm pulling out. No, I'm pulling out of your room right now.
The Olam is not too happy about that. Yosy, they're not too happy. Okay, wait a second. Oh, here we go. We're doing Aleph. And one we compare it to Pigul, or we don't compare it to Pigul. That was the shaila. Affecting more master about Yud Amar Aleph around 15 lines down. Malchutz is managed to came for it. Elo Amar about Yod. In a case where if the person shechs puts some klima, that makes sense. Okay, Mabim Mokim Rabbi Sai Shema Marini Sheikh Chutzum Kaimishu Kosher. Shocht al Manas Luzak Domi Chutzum Kaimis Posel. That by Pigul Mechash Mavoid Lavoida helps. Mokim Shema Marini Sheikh Shaloi Lishmoi. Certainly when it comes to Machshavik cells of Shaloi Lishmoi Shu Posel, Shocht al Manas Luzak Domi Shaloi Lishmoi in shape Posel. So therefore, to write Rabbi Mask of Rabbi can't make a kavuchay from chutzim kaimai. Al chutzim kaimish can make the chalazvach. Since chutzim kaimai is make the chalazvach, so therefore it is more chomer. And even if you had a machshava in the shkita to make this rika shaloi l'shma, or to make this rika pigul, that's why it's going to work. But when it comes to shaloi l'shma, sheni noigel b'pesach v'chados, shaloi l'shma only passes by pesach and chados. And therefore, it has to be in the avoid itself, which means we have to think the shchita shaloi l'shma. We have to be zerek the dam shaloi l'shma. Have a machshava in the shchita that you will be zerek the dam shaloi l'shma, which is mechash me'avoid la'avoida, is not a machshava aprisos at all. Elam Ravashi. Yes. Yes, there's no difference. There's absolutely no difference. Because the one this is, no. So, because the one this is very clear. You shechted l'shma. You know, the people is not shaloi l'shma. It's a mistake. He shechted l'shma. Al minas l'izraik shaloi l'shma. But the zrika was l'shma. Yes, he did. He did nothing. He did nothing. Oh, by Pigul, you cannot change your mind. This is the beauty of the Gemara. By Pigul, if you have much of the shchita to make the zrika later. Such a machshava that doesn't pass our way. If you come in where Elton is coming from, you have to learn me because he wore me out on Thursday. If you said 20 minutes on it, I'll say you moved from 10:30 till 12 tonight, and Elton 12 to 1, and it was very good, but you see the concept by Pigul. That's the debate. By Pigul, the concept, you didn't do anything wrong in the shchita. There's no chutzes man in shchita. You saw you eat, zoyre, will be marked the murim chutzes man in koim. And action. The chash avoid love is the Gemara is not cutting both smart. You got to make that so shchita. You got to think the shchita shaloi l'shma. You got to think the zrika shaloi l'shma. That's the focus is on it. If you shech l'shem point, she shechts it l'shem someone else. Not sure. Why? Because shechita shem someone else is not nitzvas. Because remember, the shem bailim is only nitzvas in zrika. It can only attach itself by the kapora. The kapora. That's when the name of the bailim attaches. So vaish bound fi shech l'shem point. You should call it the lizard domoy the shem point. But let's say he shechts al menas to be zorik to dump to someone else. That passes by shini bailim, because we learned on Daf Dalid that Shini Bailam passes in all Dalit Avodas. And if Shini Bailam passes in all Dalit Avodas, so therefore that's going to pass. Malcolm Shemon, Marini Shechet Shaloi Shemon, where if he Shech Shaloi Shemon by Chatas and Pesach it passes, should possible Shachtam not Suzik Domin Shaloi Shemon, and he didn't she ain't possible. This is an Ashi Talchima to be a proof to Rabbi Yochanan. Because in Shini Bailam, so this is that is going to possible. And since that she could just I'm checking with Shabbos. I'm going to be serving the dam with Shem Oilo, and they had that machshava during the shechit. But in Shini Kodesh, we're going to have to tell that's going to Shlokish maintains that for possible. The psul is so if you machash in the shchita to change the Bible by the Zikah, that has a Shem. The Kodesh has to be in the way that you're doing. That's not focus. It is focus on people. Reb Elo, the shiur, it's not easy. Reb Elo brought a writer. The writer of Shlokas says, don't write by Zrika. Tasty Mikal Chomi B'Minayu. I always say, what don't write by Zrika? Those that remember that, the more look for much more. And the more each and every avoid that we repeat, the more says, im Zevachim Kabbalah, Zikoshem Shlomin. Azerik Dama Shlomin. Not Makras Dama Shlomin. Makras Dama Shlomin. What? They tell me Azerik Dama Shlomin. I don't know Azerik Dama Shlomin. Why? Look at the case makes Alchon. We've been just like the Shrit in the Kabbalah where it says Shrita Lishmo and says Shlomin. You need the Kabbalah Lishmo to be Lishmo. And if he thinks it's no good. Why did the Torah write by his reading? And you know why? Hazirk is Dama Shlomim. We don't need Hazirk is Dama Shlomim. You have Shchit in Kabbalah. Hazirk is Dama Shlomim. It's only needs but let's say you had a machshava to make the Zrika Shaloi Lishma. That's not going to work. Shaloi Lishma. If we change make a couple of the hash metal with this comes with small in that to me it's like no, not meaning. Yes. It has to be Shazrika because that's the capital Bible and the Shem on the Korban. L'shmo, the entire Korban is a Chatas or Noila, the Dal Avoidus HaKorban. But the Shem Bailam is nitfas only by Zrika. That's a Chiddush that the Gemara learns out. That's not good by Zrika. But if a guy is already, then he taps into that. Vida Parachochi, Malahanav can't tune a soften, not extra. You can't learn out even Shchita and Kabbalah. Because Malahanav can't tune a soften, Chatzah Pnimis. Shchita and Kabbalah even soften. And Chatzah Pnimis, Rabbi say Chatzah Pnimis, right? We're going to have in Yom Kippur. And therefore, Zrika is different on the Chatzapnimis. The Shechita in Kabbalah is universal. Everywhere there's a Shechita, that's necessary. Ve'idach, Hashtami Bishlam Kaiminon. You're right. But it's the same. The Shechita and Kabbalah are always the same. No matter where there's Rika is different. Sometimes Rika is inside, so therefore you have that pircha. Ve'idach, Hashtami Bishlam Kaiminon. You're right. This Apnimis has a different Rika. I'm asking you from Shlomim. A strict Kabbalah from Shlomim. Shechita from him. The halacha is that there is no chatas apnimis. We're dealing with shlomim, and therefore the Torah does not have to write hazarik as dama shlomim. Bring that out from Shechita and Kabbalah. Therefore, you have an extra pasuk, and if you have an extra pasuk, that pasuk according to Shlosh is teaching me that ein mechashvet avodah la'avodah. Here we start by saying mashachol shmo. Here you have crystal clear. With very much small, and after all, Rabbi Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Finkel, he agreed to Rabbi Nachman, the California Rabashi, which is the California from Shini Island. It's like Shini Island. Like Shini Island is just like Shini Island. I have to stick up. Like I can't take this line down. I have to say that the more only the from Shini Island from Pigul, first day from Pigul, she outtests on base. It's not social because the Pigul is a psulim korban. Very good to think, to do something like that. So there you have Makash me avoid la avoid. But Lishmo, it's a person avoid. But ignore it does say yeah, Kalkam Shni. She goes so avoid. Someone who's very shalom Shem Bailam, it's the best of people is to do what avoid is on the mass, not to finish it. Because Kasha from Shini Bailam. Wait till we're going to go drop past it now. It's beautiful. No. Yes. Yeah. That's why I anoint Sheminadin, because some lady could come and slug it up. One of the reasons why I anoint Sheminadin. Okay, everybody, so here we're going to go drop faster, but hold with, because they're beautiful psukim. That tomorrow's going to Dashin. Shitas Reb Eliezer is that an Osham is also possible Shalei Lishma. We have Reb Eliezer in the Mishnah. Reb Eliezer in the Mishnah says that Osham is also possible. Not only is Chatas possible, Osham is also Chatas Balchet, Osham Balchet. Nachat Shloshim Zrikas Dam is on the top of the Mizbech HaChitzin. Amler Reb Eliezer. What? The upslug is because it's more chomer. The higher the Zrika is, the more chashivs the carbon has. The top part is like
that would make a difference in
Yishma. Yeah, I'll tell you why. I
mean, there has to be a thought.
There is a sort. The more chashiv you have to treat carbon, the more delicate the carbon is. What delicate means? The finer the crystal, the easier it breaks. So the more delicate the chatos is, the more comes back, which is clearly a chomer. Yes, it's in the chomer. It's in the level of kedusha. All the time you're saying kabbalah.
The bottom there should be the same. I also
You're doing phenomenal. Ellie, you're a very good company. I'm not going to debate that. Oh, but be sure this one. Okay, you do, Ellie. You're on a roll, huh?
You have a machlok with the I will be
okay, I'm going to show Allah. You know, the chatzish came. That's like well, yes, the Pesach is here. Look at Pesach. Where's the time of Pesach? Yes, look at the the bottom 5 amas. All the rest of the components on the bottom. Components that are on top are Chatas Behemo and Oila Soif. Molak Victor. The street is the Mokim Hector. It's the top. Those are the two cores. Again, Chatas Behemo and Oila Soif. Everything else is the bottom. Those are clear psukim in the Torah. That's not debatable. In fact, as far as I know, that's different special. It's in North Side. That's why I'm willing to Mishnah. So that's why I'm willing to Mishnah. It's not so. Like the 20. It's not so. It's not so. Both serious. So, well, this is not a bit thin. And one is almost, which is almost a fire. Like almost 1,000 veterans. Every story that we're so here there's board is a let's say something else. I see they were great in most of the necessary, which is trying to do. Where my Bulia Rishloy just before my test game pronounce it. When we do say in Mosif, but I meant that the only author that's to is that's Shavuos. That's the only carbon, one in Emor and one in Pinchas.
I thought it's about filler. Actually,
I'm sure. I say that by Kessel Yom Chagenu. Rishchodesh.
And say that's the only that's really exclusive.
No, Pesach had Oimer. Suk says Pesach Hamayim. Every Yom Tov has its special mitzvah.
You want this something special?
No. I wanted the chiluk. That's not what I wanted the chiluk in the musaf and in the korbanos. Shavuos has the unique factor. Shavuos is 2 seir. No other Yom Tov, no other day has that except Rosh Hashanah, because there's one else for Shloidish, which is not for the same reason as Rosh Hashanah. Okay, I'm like, I said, oh, what did I tell the Olam? Shnei seir mochaper. Amle Bishua Eloi Mamet Pechata came Domala Milo. Chatas Domala Milo. Amle Blazer Pesach here, Domala Mata. Bishok the Shloish Mois Puzzle. Amle Bishua Mala Pesach came Zvani Kavua. Pesach, you don't have an option. Pesach has the Choyme, you have 6 hours to bring it. Amle Blazer Chatas Yichiach. Amle Bishua Chazani Chalila. And Bishua says, Chazani Chalila, Bishua says, fine, but you can't learn it out. And we'll see why. The Gemara will explain in a few moments. Because Rabbi Lezer was done with Dinacher. Rabbi Lezer was Faiza, and he was done with Dinacher. Chatas nema bo hi b'shchita. Hi l'shma k'sheira, shaloi l'shma psula. So Rabbi Lezer said, I have something else. By Chatas, it says the lotion of he. And the Gemara says, so v'shochat oisoi, b'mkayim she'yishchat so l'fnei Hashem, Chatos who? Chatos who? This is a coin of a nos. This is a coin of a nosi. It's a male chatos. It's a soyer. I guess the Yosy should be who? No. Okay, who b'shchita? Zok Gemara who l'shma k'sheira shaloi l'shma psula. Well, Pesach nema by who? Pesach also says b'zvicha. By Pesach it also says the loshen. By zvicha Pesach who? The posik of Pesach is Vamatem Zevach Pesach Hu Hashem. Vamatem Zevach Pesach Hu. which is the avoida. Who we learn out has to be a Pesach l'shmei kosher l'shmei pasuk. Reb Lezer says af osham nema by who. By osham it also says who. Victor Yisem HaKohen HaMincha Ishel Hashem osham who. Also in Pashas probably Tzav. So tomorrow who and Vayikru or Tzav I can't see what it says, but either Vayikru or Tzav. So tomorrow who l'shmei.
Nothing to do with Lamala and Lamata.
No, he has a new pasuk. He has exercise. It's not a limud. Who l'shmei kosher shelo l'shmei pasuk. Amar Yeshua no. Chatas nemaba he b'shchita or who b'shchita. That's by b'shchita, like we read from the pasuk. Rabbi say b'shochat oisei b'mkoyim she'yishchav soilo. So who is shmok sher shlo shmok psua Pesach nemba who b'zvicha v'amatim zevach Pesach who zevach Pesach is the shchita zevach zvicha who l'shmei kosher l'shmei pasuk avo oshmoi nemba who elachak tersi murim. Where does it say osham? We read the pasuk v'hikter oisem hakoyin. That's after Tersi murim. Is kosher. How could you say that? That's teaching me that l'shmoz makif. Even if one is not maktiv emurim, it's a kosher korban. Rabbi say it's kosher. I'm stuck. You're right. The Lord says I'm going back to a hekesh. Kachatas ka'osham erachas lahem. Well, kachatas ka'osham Maya was waiting. Terachas lahem akoyin at sheyichaper boy lo yiyah. The Torah makes a hekesh. There's a hekesh of chatas and osham. So we're not going with the soros, with the mamatzinu. You have a hekesh. Ma chatas shaloi l'shma pasal, v'asham shaloi l'shma pasal. That's what blesses dosha. Is kachatos ka'osham. I'm sure didn't answer already. We sure didn't answer this. We sure didn't answer this. We'll see later in the Gemara. We sure didn't answer. The Brisa ends. Conversation. They got Reb Lezer to be chayzer twice from the Shita, but the third time Reb Lezer, you see something here. Rabbi say that you see something here. Rabbi say something that's a mitzvah to say over. Chaim HaKodesh says in Pashas Tazria, said it many times, and he says that he's matmiya. What does it mean that Moshe Rabbeinu had chalishas das when he saw Rabbi Kiva? Kol Talmud that that's Machadish Dov with Sinai. Every single thing they knew. It's impossible to say. It's impossible to say. But Rabbi Kiva knew something more than Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem says it's impossible. It means 5 rights in the Purish Gemara. The Chaim HaKodesh says, Kol Avodah from the Gedei, all the Deiros were that they should put in Perishah B'Ksav. Allah was given to Moshe Rabbeinu in Sinai. And Moshe Rabbeinu could put every single halacha with Deiros that will ever be, that's Emes Lamita, Nischadish, and Klal Yisrael. The Kiva did not know more. But it was not Moshe Rabbeinu. Where are all the Ramazim, whether it's in Tagim, whether it's in Yudgim or Midois, who state us in Torah Shebechsav? When he says Moshe Rabbeinu saw the way that Kiva was Dorish, it's not that Kiva was Mechanish Haloch, or Kivus Haloch, but he pinpointed where this at Kedash, and they say the guy in the end of his life went out 70 mitzvahs from Beishas Bori, Kimish Mayim Basar, Alts Kivem and Kumish. They asked him Mozim, every single mitzvah from every pasuk. Where the Rem is, I'm going to mitzvah to see if Rabbi said. It's in Tazri, I'll tell you that. In Pasuk Tazri, it's a mitzvah to see it. That Avada and Kiva was not Mechanish one thing that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know. It's impossible to say that. It's impossible to say that. You see over here something similar. Reb Lezer knew the halacha Osham was like a chatos. That was his mistake. I don't say. Reb Lezer he made up that halacha. So then he kept on getting slogged up. Give up. He wasn't giving up. He knew Osham like chatos. His avoid was Mametzinu. Ishta Mametzinu who? Nishtu kachatos kosham. The debate was